one of the biggest things right now is cell phones and driving, texting while driving. It's about the worst problem in Texas and about the leading cause of wrecks in the state of Texas.
Hi, everybody. I'm Leslie Rohde, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Lawyers. Our topic today affects all of us, texting and driving. Today we have with us attorney Justin Smith of the Sloan Firm in Longview, Texas. Thanks so much, Justin, for being with us.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here.
I know you've done a lot of cases involving texting and driving, so you know a lot about it. But to answer this, how does texting and driving compare to other behaviors like drunk driving when it comes to an accident?
Sure. So there was actually a study that was performed about maybe 3-4 years ago by the state of Texas, where they were looking at the effect of texting while driving and comparing it to, things like talking while driving and being drunk over the legal limit. And so when they finished that study, they had found that texting while driving has an equivalent effect as being over 2.5 times the legal limit for alcohol. So, for alcohol, it's a 0.08, and if you blow a 0.08, you're drunk and you're drinking while driving. Texting while driving was found to have an equivalent of 2.5 times that amount of alcohol in your system on a person's ability to operate their motor vehicle.
It's tough to swallow. Wow, that number is amazing. The laws in Texas, I know the laws are a little bit different everywhere as it relates to texting and driving, but we're both in Texas. Kind of bring us up to date on what the texting and driving laws are there in Texas.
So Texas's natural inclination is to allow counties and municipalities to try to administer themselves as much as possible, and that has resulted in a more patchwork approach here than you would see in other states that are, more top-down driven. And so you've got a lot of county ordinances and regulations that deal with texting while driving or talking on the cell phone while driving. There's a statewide statute that was adapted into the rules of the road for the Texas Transportation Code that makes it an offense to use a wireless device and text on that wireless device while you're operating a motor vehicle. And that's particularly true when you're in, school zone. And there's a greater offense if you're using that device while in a school zone.
So yeah, you're right. They really are different in a lot of different places, depending on what state you're in, and then depending on what municipality, city, or county you may be in.
That's right.
When a driver looks down at a text, I've heard some different numbers on this, and I'm wondering if you have these for me. Like if I'm driving and I look down at my phone to maybe check a text, how far can I actually be driving in that time that I look down?
So it depends on how fast your vehicle's moving at the time when you look down. So, there's a chart that's published by the Texas Department of Public Safety and the DMV. That's the Texas Driver's Handbook. Everyone gets one when they're going through a driver's education course. And it tells you, how far a vehicle will move based on how fast that vehicle is traveling. And so when you look down at your cell phone, how far your vehicle is going to move is going to be based on how fast you're going at the time when you look down. But from my recollection, what the studies have shown is that when someone looks down to read a text, they're taking their eyes off the road for as long as 30 seconds or longer, depending on the length of that text. And it's even worse when you're actually trying to text someone else a response or doing a new text to someone else. So let's say you're going 50 miles an hour down the roadway and you're taking your eyes off the road for 30 seconds. I mean, you're traveling hundreds, if not thousands of feet where you're not looking and don't know where you're going. And the problem is that if someone else is doing that, they're not aware of the traffic conditions that are going around them or, coming up on stop signs and things of that nature, that they don't know what the roadway conditions are. And there's a lot of wrecks. A lot of wrecks are caused by texting while driving and using cell phones while driving. And I actually deposed a couple of law enforcement officers in a case last year, and it was a city police officer, and there was a Texas Department of Public Safety officer. And they both told me in their depositions that one of the biggest things right now is cell phones and driving, texting while driving. It's about the worst problem in Texas and about the leading cause of wrecks in the state of Texas from what they were saying.
I believe it. Well, you've handled a lot of these cases and you've mentioned, but so how do you as an attorney go about proving that someone was actually distracted by his or her cell phone or texting and driving if they're involved in an accident?
Yeah. So one of the first things we do is when a lawsuit gets on file, we send out written discovery, and a written question that I always ask is for the defendants and the drivers' telephone information. Who is their wireless carrier? What's the number? What's the name on the account? And then what we do is we send what are called depositions on written questions with a subpoena to the carrier for that number, for the date and time that the wreck occurred. And we'll get the information from the carrier as to, was that person on the phone either talking, or were there texts that were coming in and leaving from that phone at the time when the wreck happened?
Okay, I have a personal question here that I think can apply to many of us. I have a 14, almost 15-year-old who is really excited about driving and getting ready for that. Any advice for parents like myself who know, my girl has a cell phone. How do I get her to really understand the danger of texting and driving?
That's hard. One of the things that we started doing about almost 10 years ago, when we started seeing this problem more and more, is we actually started going into schools and doing presentations and talking to the students who are getting ready to get their license or who had their license and just started driving about how dangerous this is. And it's hard to make someone who's young understand that this is a real problem, and there's not the stigma around it now that there is about drinking and driving. And I think that we're getting there. I think that the public is becoming more and more aware of how dangerous texting while driving is, and even talking on your cell phone while driving. But it's still not to the point where, kids have the same kind of understanding that talking on your phone while driving and texting while driving can be as bad, and according to the studies, even worse than getting drunk and getting behind the wheel of a car. And so, talking to kids like we did in the schools is one thing that parents, I think, should be doing. And the other thing is that you got to know that not all of that's going to land. And the companies that are producing these cell phones, they're manufacturing cell phones like Apple and Android, they're instituting parental controls and locks to keep people from texting while driving. And I'd encourage parents to look at those things and to put them in place on their kids' phones when they're driving, so that they can't text and drive at the same time.
Very good advice. I'll have to look more into those. I've begun some of the research, but I'll definitely do that. And I'm really glad you all are going into the schools like that, because I know you have stories from cases that you can probably share to really let kids know what can happen when they do this. So that's great. I wonder if there's anything as a driver that I can tell, like, is there a behavior from another car or something that I can watch for that might tell me, hey, that person is texting and driving?
Not really. Not anything that would tell you, oh, well, this person's texting while driving, as opposed to, being impaired in some other fashion. Mm-hmm. If you see someone who's driving erratically, then that tells you something's going on. You can try to drive defensively. But the problem is that, you don't have any control over how that person is operating. And if they're not watching where they're going, you don't really know what they're going to do next.
So if I am in an accident and I might think that that other person was texting and driving, what should I do first?
First thing you should do is you should make sure that you're okay, and then you should call the police and have them come down and do an investigation of the wreck like you would for any other motor vehicle collision, and have them draw up, for Texas, it would be the Texas Peace Officer Crash Report. That'll have all the information for the insurance on the crash report. You exchange that information with the other driver before the police officer gets there if you can. If you're hurt, go get yourself checked out. Make sure that you're following up on that to make sure that you're getting treatment that you need.
That's great. Justin, any other advice or things you want to leave viewers with? Any really important thing that you want to get home to them right now?
Not really, other than we're all kind of responsible for how we operate our vehicles. You don't have any control over anybody else, but it is dangerous to text and drive and talk on the cell phone while driving. And so don't do it. And if you get injured because someone did, then, make sure you run through the same traps you would if you were any other wreck, which is call the police, have them come down, investigate the wreck, and then make sure you get yourself checked out. And if you need help, don't hesitate to call an attorney to try to help you out.
Yeah, an attorney like yourself that has a lot of experience in this would be a good one to call. And we really appreciate you taking the time to answer some of these questions. We talk about it, but I think it's a subject that will continue to be an issue on our roadways.
Right, and it will. And it'll probably get worse before it gets better.
Thanks so much, Justin Smith, Sloan Company, or Sloan Firm, rather, in Longview, Texas. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to all of you for watching this episode of Ask the Lawyers. Remember, we'd love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out more episodes there. And if you're ready to choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, go on over to askthelawyer.com and find lots of resources there. Thanks again for watching. I'm Leslie Rohde.